Welcome to Bayonne Tonight. Today we have a very special guest. We have former Bayonne High School student athlete and founder and president of the Bayonne Chiropractic League, Bobby DeChiaro. Welcome to the show, Bobby.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks for having me.
First off, I just want to ask, what inspired you to create the Chiropractic Baseball League?
Well, you know, a lot of guys were Little League coaches for many years, and we really just wanted to do something a little bit better. Kind of got stagnant. Some rules and regulations that we didn't particularly care for. But honestly, the biggest motivation was we wanted to showcase the talent of the youth in Bayonne into district and state play. And if you remember, in the Little League days, Little League ran from April to August, and they really didn't do any post-season tournament stuff. We thought that it'd be a great idea to get our players on the county stage, the state stage, and that was our biggest motivation. Plus, honestly, you know, the old expression, build a better mousetrap. We just thought we can do it a little better, and we believe the results speak for themselves.
Who else was involved within the creation of the Bayonne Chiropractic League?
I don't want to leave anybody out, but Mike Masellis, Nick Brancatella, my brother Joe, guys, you know, deceased, guys that are no longer with us, Tom Strifolino, Joe O'Neill, Pete Siebel, Gerard Jablonski, not deceased, Frank Romano, Tommy Ensminger, Jesse Matos. I'm probably leaving some names out, but it takes an army to pull off any organization. It doesn't matter what you're running, but to run a successful youth organization, especially when there's another one in town, it takes an army. I would say, Emmanuel, dozens, if not 100 or so, dedicated volunteers it took to produce the program that we did.
What was the development of constructing the field like? Was it something you envisioned personally?
I was told I was nuts when I came up with the idea. We were hosting a tournament at the old Fish Street field, and I'd drive from out of town. I used to be in the construction business, and I'd come in to try to get the field in somewhat decent shape, and I'd sit there with a hose for like an hour, and you know, I'd be done, and the field was still too hard. You know, there were holes everywhere. It was uneven, and I was like embarrassed. I'm like, man, we're hosting out-of-town teams, and you know, this is really not a field that's up to hosting tournaments. So I had the crazy idea of turfing the field, and you know, even the field turf companies were like, yeah, Little League type fields, nobody does that. It was more set for big stadiums, you know. At the time, no one really turfed Little League sized fields. So, but you know, one thing about myself that I'll say, that if it gets in my head, it's over. Like, I just wanted to do that. I knew how important it was for us to get on a bigger stage and to showcase and to bring other towns into, so we can host tournaments. So it was a necessary thing in my mind. It was virtually impossible. There were 7 or 8 different hurdles where a lot of people would have said, yeah, let's forget this. But $250,000 later, we went from having nothing to raising about $100,000, and then we got a loan from BCB for $150,000. Put those two together, and the dream became a reality.
How has the league changed over the years while you were running it?
Well, the one thing I've always stated, took this from one of my mentors, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you always have to try to get better, and that's just the case for whatever you're doing. If you get fat, and I don't mean physically, I mean if you get to the point where you think you've arrived, you're on your way out. So we always strive to get better. We started out, I don't know, you probably remember, we started out with, we didn't have any electricity, we had no running water, we had no clubhouse, we had no dugouts, we had no press box. So obviously, with no electricity, no lights, like we had nothing. We started out, thanks to Chuck Singer, may he rest in peace, with a container that could store some stuff, and we were thrilled with that. Then we put up a fake construction fence in the early days, because we didn't want a ball to travel 300 feet and be an inside the park home run. Then we got a real fence one year. So we every year we strove to do something better, to the point where we got to a state where we believe we created the greatest youth facility, maybe, Emmanuel, in the country, the Yard, which it turned out to be. It really was a shining star in the field of youth baseball.
How do you feel seeing a majority of the high school baseball team come from your league? Is that something you're proud of?
Yeah, it's a lot of pride, man. It's watching, people don't realize, I haven't lived in Bayonne. Man, what's it now, 26, 27 years I haven't lived in Bayonne. But yet, I watched those boys win the section last year. I mean, most of that team, kids that came to our program. So there's no doubt, tremendous amount of pride. And again, the credit goes to all of the guys that put the time in. And to put time in to a program, one of the things I really love about us, Emmanuel, is a lot of our guys, after their kids left the program, they stayed on our board. You don't see that. I mean, we had guys doing 10, 15, 20 years of service with the league, and many of them, most of them, their kid had already left the program. So the dedication was just unparalleled. That's why we were so successful. We had just so many great people, really dedicated. Their motives weren't questioned. Some guys get involved in youth baseball strictly for the benefit of their own kids. We didn't have that. We had guys that really were part of the program because they wanted to make a difference.
If you could have done something different with the Carrollton League, what would you have done differently?
I don't really think, that's a great question, but I don't think we would have done anything different, because it takes time to establish yourself. Like, you always want to do stuff faster, but it takes time to build stuff, and you have to build trust in the community. When we first started the league, there were some people that thought bad things about us. Like, even some of the politicians were like, hey, what are you doing? There's a little league in town. There's 1,000 members. They've been around for 50 years. Why are you starting this program? So we almost got like an antagonistic, an adversary type approach in the beginning. So some people were like, what are you're trying to show? No, we were like, no, we're not trying to show anybody. We're just trying to do what we want to do. We feel like some of our issues were going on deaf ears when we were in the league, because all of us were there, by the way. Every person that started, I won't say every, but 90% of the people that started our program migrated from Little League. And when our concerns and our ideas went on deaf ears, we thought, all right, let's branch out and do our own thing. So the question is, what would I do differently? I really don't think, I don't think we would have done anything differently over the course of the 19 years.
Did you have a goal in mind that you want to achieve when you were running the league, and did you achieve that goal?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest goals was the field, right? I wanted to produce a field that can attract not just all the best players to play here in our town, but also to attract other organizations to come so we can host tournaments. When you host a tournament, your team automatically gets put into it. So for instance, you host a regional tour. We hosted some regional tournaments. Now, to get to a region, you have to win your district, then you have to win your state, and then you get to a region. So by having a great facility, we were able to host regions without necessarily because it's hard to win a state. I believe we won 4 states in our 19-year history. I think over 70 districts we won. Of course, never won a region, but we participated in a handful because of the facility that we had. But overall, I'd say the goal was just to create better kids, make them better adults. Like, we really wanted to teach them life lessons. We used baseball as a tool to teach life lessons, discipline, hard work, teamwork, right? Sure. All the stuff that's important to succeed in life, we tried to instill that in our players, and we feel like we've done that.
What are some of your favorite moments or memories from Calverton?
Wow. Well, I think the greatest memory ever is Julian Gonzalez and I could send you that clip. Julian Gonzalez hits a walk-off grand slam to win the state championship at our field. I think that has to be the greatest moment. Winning championships in the districts, hosting were great, but a state championship, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was our second state championship, but the first at our facility and in walk-off fashion. It's pretty magical. Yeah.
What did you want the kids to take of value while playing in Cowichan?
Well, we took a lot of pride in all the important things. We spent good money on uniforms.
Right.
We expected our kids to wear them right. We expected them to act appropriately. You know, we didn't really like any of the showboat stuff. Unfortunately, baseball has become, right, you see it all the time with the excessive bat flips. Like, we tried to teach values. We tried to teach the right way. Like, play hard, don't be lazy, be a good teammate, you know, don't sulk if you lose, don't be a baby, right? These are things that we tried to instill. So I would hope that the biggest attribute that the players took from the experience were those values. Now, of course, they got great baseball. The baseball that they experienced in their career there, I mean, I hate to say this, man, but those days are over. Like, it's sad, but the youth baseball situation, and not just in Bayonne, but all over, has really taken a big step backwards. And those kids, like yourself, you played in the league, that experience that they had is going to be something that they should treasure, and unfortunately, the next generation is just not going to have the same experience, because coaches have decided that there's a little bit too much politics these days. There's a little too much emphasis on, you know, excuse making, and sometimes parents don't align well. Like I was a disciplinarian when I coached. You could ask. There's a lot of guys teaching in this school. The principal of this school I coached. You could ask them. They'll tell you that I was not the easiest guy to play for. But I believe at the same time they'll tell you that they're thankful that I was the way I was. I don't know if I can coach today without getting a red mark because of my style. So I hope that the kids from the Cal Ripken League realized that they were coached hard but fairly, and they gained life experiences from their time there.
I want to switch it to you personally now. You're a former student here.
Yeah.
And you played football, correct?
I did, yes.
What position did you play?
I was a two-way tackle. I was the captain of the '84 team. We made the state playoff. But interestingly, the game we played in the States, our teachers were on strike. So we didn't have any coaches for our state playoff game. So we lost to Ridgewood, but I had a great, football made me who I am. Everything about my personality today is because of the mentorship I got from Mr. Ahern, Coach Chappell, Coach Lee, Coach Brown, which obviously all these gentlemen are deceased. These were the people that made Bayonne High School football made me who I am today.
As a former student athlete, what advice would you give to current athletes trying to balance time for their academics and their athletics?
The advice I would give, now I have, obviously you know, I have a son who's a student athlete, so I would give the same advice to anyone, is it's going to end fast, so you better put everything you've got into it. Because when it's over, you don't want to have any regrets. To say, man, I wish I would have did this a little bit more. I wish I would have did, right? That's the thing. I mean, this, before you know it, I'm this rising freshman. I win lineman of the year as a freshman, and I start every game as a sophomore. I'm this big rising star, and boom, I get a back injury my junior year, and I was told by specialists that I should never play football again, that I'm in danger of doing permanent damage to my body. It devastated. I was like, I don't want to say suicidal, but massively depressed. Football was my life. thankfully, Dr. Chichuli, deceased chiropractor in Bayonne, put me back together. I played the last 4 games of my junior season and then played my entire senior season, but it was over in a blink, and I had that appreciation for almost losing it. And I think that's what I would give advice to. Like, it can end to whatever sport you play. You play baseball, you're a pitcher. One pitch can end your career, right? You get an injury. Football, one hit. Do everything you can because it's going to end. It ends for everyone, and sometimes we don't have control when it ends. So make sure you're doing everything you can while you're still able to.
What challenges did you face as a student athlete, and how did you overcome them?
Well, the challenges that everyone has, right? When you're a student, like football, you're practicing 3 hours a day. So some of your buddies are going, after school, they're hanging out, maybe they're going to chill, whatever they're doing. Weekends, maybe they're going to a party. Meanwhile, you're preparing for a game. So the challenges are the discipline. It's the self-discipline that you must possess to avoid the peer pressure stuff. The one thing you can learn in life is, if everybody's doing it, it's probably not the best route to go, right? You want to carve your own path. I mean, fellowship isn't leadership. Leadership is, man, I know what I got to do, and if I don't do it, you'll end up just like everyone else will be, right? You could either sacrifice now to have the things that most people won't have later, or you could do the stuff that everyone's doing now and not have it. It's a choice.
Well, what is one memorable moment you have from high school?
Oh, the greatest. It's an easy one. I was a defensive tackle, so I scored a touchdown, and I did it on our opening night against Bricktown in my senior year. We were heavily underdogs. Bricktown. In fact, I wrote a paper about this in college. And my college professor made me go up and read the paper, which I was shocked. I didn't realize that I was just describing the week of this particular game. But we were heavily underdog against Brick. We traveled there. The one great thing about it, Mr. Leahy, rest in peace, teacher here in Bayonne High School, booked 14 buses of students to come to that game to support us. And we were winning the entire game. A fumble that they returned for a touchdown put us behind. We came down the field, took the lead, and then in the last series, Wayne Cancro made a tackle, quarterback fumbles, I picked the ball up, I run in for an 11-yard touchdown. It's a thrilling moment.
What's your relationship with the Bayonne High School sports teams?
Oh, man, I mean, listen, the baseball program, I've been a big supporter of the baseball program. Like you said, most of the kids, even the coaches, Coach Hoffman obviously did not play in any of the leagues because he was a little older. But if you look at all of his assistants through the years, Frankie Flynn, Nick Bracatello, who's now the hockey coach, one of my favorite coaches of all time. Rob Kachansky was an assistant. Jeremy Ives, all these guys came through our program. So I've always maintained a tight relationship, and I expect gear from the coaches, hockey gear, like, you know what I'm saying?
Going back to the Calworking League, I want to ask, how did you handle balancing how did you balance competition in the league and the importance of sportsmanship in the league?
Well, competition, do you mean like from outside leagues? Is that
Well,
right?
I mean competition within the league. So like when teams face themselves, and like how did you handle the sportsmanship so no one,
Oh yeah, we didn't really have a problem with that. I mean, we hired quality umpires. We put a lot of trust and faith into them. We never had issues with. I mean, of course, you always have one or two. Over the course of time, you get a kid that maybe loses his temper. It happens, but for the most part, again, it starts at the top. If you instill characteristics, beliefs, standards, boundaries at the top, and then you surround yourself with guys and girls that believe in the same things you do, it filters, and that's why the organization was so successful.
What challenges did you face while running the league, and how did you overcome them?
Well, we had challenges a lot because we also had another league in town, right? So sometimes there were conflicts with scheduling. Sometimes politicians would like to get involved when they shouldn't have. So when you're doing any volunteer work, doesn't matter what you're doing, you have to kind of have multiple hats on. You got to have your politic hat on, you got to have your baseball hat on, you got to have your sales hat on, you got to have your psychology hat on. Lots of different things that you have to do. So sometimes it's thankless, but when you look at the end result, and I walk around and I see guys in their 30s that I used to coach with their own kids saying thank you because now they're going through it, it all makes it worth it, Emmanuel.
What's one thing you learned while running the league?
I learned that most of the things that you do for the good are going to go unrecognized, but that's okay. You're not doing it for recognition. You're doing it because that's what you want to do. I also learned that you're not going to make everyone happy, and it's okay not to. It's okay if some people are not happy with what you do. It's just the way it is in life.
Well, what's something you look forward to doing every year while running the league?
I loved every phase of it. I mean, I loved opening day. I loved all the obviously the playoffs. We used to do a hotline. I don't know if you remember. We used to do the highlights. I mean, we'd actually get the highlights from each coach. The coach would email me the recap of each game, and then I would do an audio highlight. I'd put my announcer voice on, and I'd say, hey, Emmanuel got a 2-1 triple in the bottom of it. And that email would go out to the entire league.
How did you maintain a happy relationship with parents and kids within the league?
Just be fair. Like, if you just do the right thing and don't worry about who's not going to like you, that's all you can do. All you can do is all you can do, right? So just be fair, be objective, don't be a phony, and don't be biased. And that was something that I took a lot of pride in.
All right, final question. Looking back, what legacy do you hope you have left within the Bayonne Chiropractic League and the Bayonne community?
The legacy is, I hope that people realize that myself and a bunch of really dedicated, hardworking individuals sacrificed their lives for the betterment of the children's lives of this town. And I just hope that they respect that, and nobody needs any awards, nobody needs any accolades, but it'd be nice for people to just say, man, what those guys did was something good for this town.
Well, thank you, Bob, for coming on to the show. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for everyone who tuned in. And that's it for this edition of Bayonne Tonight. Keep in touch with us through all our social medias. And as always, go Bees.